My fiancée posted wedding planning photos while secretly talking to her ex behind my back. I waited, then posted screenshots on my story the day before the ceremony. Guests started calling before she did. He still loves me. He told me last night. And honestly, I don't know what I feel anymore. That's what I read. Not a text meant for me. Not a confession she decided to offer. A message on her screen, open and glowing in the dark of our bedroom. While she was in the bathroom and I was just reaching over to turn off her lamp because I thought she'd left it on by accident. She hadn't left it on by accident. And the man she was talking to? He was already confirmed on our guest list. Assigned a seat at table 6, 3 chairs away from her mother. I put the phone back exactly the way I found it. Angle, brightness, everything. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water I didn't drink, and stood there in the silence of an apartment decorated with wedding countdown chalkboards and fairy lights she'd strung herself. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't confront her for the next 11 days. What I did instead changed every single thing. Let me tell you what was on the line, because I think that matters before you understand any of what I did next. We had 140 guests confirmed. A venue booked 18 months in advance. A converted barn outside the city that she had cried actual tears over when we first toured it. A photographer who specialized in golden hour portraits and had a 6-month wait list. Her dress had been altered 3 times. My suit had been fitted twice. Our families had flown in from different corners of the country. Her younger sister had taken a week off work to help set up the welcome table. My college roommate had written a best man speech that he'd read to me over the phone 2 weeks prior, and I remember laughing until my eyes watered. I had a life. A full, real, constructed life. One I had spent 4 years building with someone I genuinely believed was my person. And in 11 days, it was supposed to become permanent. I didn't realize it then, not fully, not in that moment by the kitchen sink, but reading that message didn't just raise a question about her loyalty. It forced open a door I hadn't even known existed. A door behind which everything I thought was solid turned out to be painted cardboard. Something irreversible was already in motion. I just hadn't decided yet what shape it would take. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I'm in my early 30s. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 14 months. We met at a friend's rooftop birthday party, the kind where you end up talking to a stranger for 3 hours and leave wondering how you went that long without knowing them. Her name is Claire, and until 11 days before our wedding, I would have told anyone who asked that she was the most honest person I'd ever loved. The morning after I found the message, she came into the kitchen smiling. Not a guilty smile. Not an overcompensating smile. Just her normal smile. Easy. Warm. The one that used to make me feel like the luckiest person in any room. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself coffee, and started talking about the seating chart adjustment her mother had requested. I nodded. I answered. I even made a small joke about her mother's particular talent for last-minute chaos. She laughed. And I sat there across from the woman I was about to marry, watching her sip her coffee like the night before had never happened, trying to understand how a person could hold something like that and still look so completely unbothered. Either she was phenomenally good at compartmentalizing, or she had already decided that whatever she was feeling didn't count. Not yet, not officially, and therefore didn't require acknowledgement. People do that sometimes. They tell themselves a thing isn't real until it's spoken out loud. As if silence functions as innocence. I let her have that silence. What I didn't do was forget. His name was Owen. They had dated for about 2 years before we got together. Not a casual situationship, a real relationship with shared apartments and meet-the-parents dinners, and the kind of history that doesn't just evaporate because someone new comes along. I knew about him the way you know about a predecessor. Abstractly, distantly, with just enough detail to understand the shape of things without feeling threatened by them. She'd mentioned him maybe 4 or 5 times over 4 years, always in past tense, always with the casual tone of someone who had genuinely moved on. He had apparently not moved on, or he had moved on and then circled back, which, depending on how you look at it, is actually worse. I didn't snoop. I want to be clear about that, because it matters to me that you understand the sequence of events. I saw that message by accident. One time, one glance, and it was enough. I didn't go back through her phone. I didn't install anything, access anything, hack anything. I just started paying attention in a different way than I had before. And once you start paying attention differently, you begin to notice things that were always there. Like the way she'd started angling her phone face down on the coffee table when she used to leave it face up next to the remote. Like how she'd started going to the bathroom to respond to certain messages, when before she'd text with the phone half in my line of sight, without a second thought. Like the way she'd mention Owen exactly once. Oh, Owen RSVP'd. He's coming solo, should be fine. And then never bring him up again despite the fact that we were 11 days from a wedding and finalizing every detail. Little things. Individually meaningless. Together, forming a pattern so clear it was almost insulting. I want to be honest. There was a part of me, some corner of my chest, that was waiting for an explanation that would make all of it dissolve. Waiting for her to come to me and say, listen, Owen has been going through something. He reached out. It's been weird. I didn't want to stress you out before the wedding. That would have been hard to hear. But I could have heard it. I could have worked with that. What I could not work with, what I was slowly, daily, becoming more certain I could not survive, was being chosen second after being convinced I was first. For days in, I did something I hadn't planned. I called my best man, his name is Tom, and I told him what I'd seen. Not everything, just enough. He went quiet for a long moment, and then he said something I've thought about many times since. What do you want to happen? Not what do you think she did? Not are you sure? Just, what do you want to happen? I didn't have an answer for him right away, because the honest answer was complicated. Part of me wanted to walk up to her that evening and say I know, and I need you to explain it, and I need you to choose right now, clearly, with no ambiguity. Another part of me wanted to wait, wanted to see how far it went, wanted the full picture before I did anything that couldn't be undone. Tom said, whatever you decide, I'm with you. That was all I needed to hear. Day 5, she posted a reel on her Instagram. Wedding content, the venue photos from our final walkthrough, the floral mock-ups the florist had sent over, a flat lay of some stationery samples. She narrated it in her bright, happy voice. The comments were full of heart emojis and congratulations. Her caption was something about feeling like the luckiest woman alive. I watched it from my phone in the next room. I didn't comment. That same evening, while she was on a call with her bridesmaid about logistics, I quietly checked my own mutual connection with Owen, a friend of a friend who had been at that original rooftop party where Claire and I met. The kind of person who exists at the edges of your social circle without being fully in it. I reached out casually, mentioned I'd seen Owen had RSVP'd, asked how he was doing these days. The response came back within the hour. Oh, Owen. He's been kind of all over the place since his engagement fell through last year. Honestly, I think he never fully got over Claire. I'm a little surprised he's coming to the wedding, but I guess they stayed friendly? I read that 3 times. His engagement had fallen through, and he had reached out to my fiancée, who was posting wedding planning content for 40,000 followers, and told her he still loved her. And she had said, I don't know what I feel anymore. I want to pause here and tell you something about how grief works, because what I felt in that moment wasn't rage. It wasn't even betrayal yet, not fully. It was something quieter and colder than that. It was the specific, particular ache of watching something you love become something you don't recognize. Like holding a photograph that still looks exactly right, but knowing the moment it captured was a lie. She came to bed that night and curled against my side the way she always did, and I lay there in the dark staring at the ceiling, and I thought, she doesn't know that I know. And for a few seconds, from some detached, almost academic part of my brain, I observed how remarkable that was. 2 people sharing a bed, sharing a life, preparing to share a last name, and one of them was holding a secret big enough to level everything, and the other one was just lying there, breathing, waiting. I didn't confront her. I was starting to see the outline of what I wanted to do instead. Day 7. I was at work, pretending to care about a quarterly review, when Tom sent me a screenshot. He had looked Owen up, not at my request, just because Tom is that kind of person, thorough and quietly ferocious when someone he cares about is being wronged. And what he found was a post. Owen's Instagram. Posted 2 days prior, so the night of day 5. It was a photo. Moody, artsy, a city street at dusk. The kind of image people post when they want to say something without saying it directly. The caption read, some things take longer to figure out than you expect, but the timing always works out in the end. The comments were mostly generic, except one, buried about 12 responses down. From Claire's personal account, a single red heart emoji. I stared at my laptop screen for a long time. Then I forwarded it to myself, put my phone in my pocket, and went back to pretending to care about the quarterly review. Here's the thing about having a plan. It gives you something to stand on when everything else is tilting. I'm not naturally a calculated person. I'm actually, if anything, the kind of person who leads with his chest, who says the thing too quickly and apologizes for the delivery later. The fact that I held this information for 11 days without flinching is something I still find slightly remarkable about myself. But I had thought about it. I had genuinely, carefully thought about what confrontation would accomplish and what it would cost. If I confronted her immediately, two possible outcomes. She tells me the truth. We blow up the wedding and spend weeks in chaos and grief while 140 people cancel travel plans. Or she lies convincingly. I'm left with less certainty than I had. And we get married with a bruise under the surface that neither of us ever fully heals. Neither of those outcomes gave me what I actually needed. What I needed was for the truth to be undeniable, for there to be no room for revised narrative or reframing. For anyone who loved Claire, her mother, her bridesmaids, my family, our friends, to see exactly what had happened and understand it without my explanation coloring it. So I waited, and I documented. Day 8. I asked Tom to quietly screenshot everything Owen posted publicly and anything that intersected with Claire's account. I wasn't hacking, I wasn't breaking any rules, it was all public, visible to anyone who looked. I was just the only one looking carefully. Day 9, Claire suggested we do a little just us dinner, somewhere nice, to exhale before the final stretch. She said she wanted to feel us before the big day swallowed everything. I said yes. We went to the restaurant where I'd proposed, which I think she chose deliberately, a romantic callback, a way of cementing something. Over dinner, she reached across the table and took my hand and said, "I'm so glad we're doing this. I can't wait to be your wife." I squeezed her hand back and said something warm that I no longer remember. And I took a photo of us at that table, smiling, her ring catching the candlelight, and I saved it to a folder on my phone that already contained 17 screenshots, an audio memo I'd made to myself on day 6, and a 3-paragraph note I'd written at 2 a.m. on day 8 because I needed somewhere to put the weight of it. Day 10. One day before the wedding. This is where everything shifts. I have to tell you the sequence slowly because it happened fast, and the fastness of it is what made it real. I woke up early. Around 5 a.m. Claire was asleep beside me. I lay there for a while just listening to the particular quiet of a morning before a life changes, knowing that by tomorrow night nothing would be the same regardless of what I chose. I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my phone, and I put together the story. Not a message to Claire, not a confrontation text, not a phone call to Owen. A story, Instagram stories, ephemeral, up for 24 hours, visible to every single person who followed me, which included Claire, her mother, her bridesmaids, my family, Tom, our entire guest list, virtually. I didn't narrate it. I didn't write paragraphs of context. I didn't editorialize. I simply posted, in sequence, clearly dated, the screenshot of the original message from her phone, just the visible portion I'd seen, nothing I'd snooped for. Owen's post with the caption and her heart emoji in the comments, a note about the timeline, and the photo of us at that restaurant. The last frame was just text, white words on black background. I love her. I wanted to marry her. But she told someone else she didn't know what she felt. The ceremony is tomorrow. You should all know before you fly out. I hit post at 6:12 a.m. Then I made myself a second cup of coffee, sat back down at the kitchen table, and waited. The first call came at 6:31 a.m. Not from Claire, from her mother. Her mother, who had driven 6 hours, who had cried at the rehearsal dinner, who had pulled me aside 3 weeks earlier and told me she was so happy her daughter had found someone solid. She didn't yell. She was not the yelling type. Her voice was very quiet and very still when she said, "Tell me what I'm looking at." I told her, calmly, completely, the whole 11 days. She listened without interrupting, which I think took an enormous amount of self-control, and when I finished she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Does she know you've posted this?" "No," I said. "Not yet." Another silence. Then, "I'm coming over." I said, "You don't have to do that." She said, "I know I don't have to." She hung up. My phone lit up again. My own mother. Then Tom. Then Claire's bridesmaid. Let's call her Rachel, who texted 5 words before calling. "What is happening right now?" Then a cascade, a genuine cascade, of people who had woken up and opened Instagram and found my story sitting at the top of their feed. 47 minutes after I posted it, my phone had logged 19 calls, 32 text messages, and 6 voicemails. Claire called at 6:59 a.m. I was sitting in the same chair. The coffee was cold. I let it ring once, twice, and then I picked up. "What did you do?" Her voice was, I don't have a perfect word for it. somewhere between shattered and furious, like something had broken so fast the edges hadn't cooled yet. I posted the truth, I said. My voice surprised me. Steady, almost quiet, the way a person sounds when they've had 11 days to come to terms with something they haven't said out loud yet. You posted. Do you know how many people have seen that? My family, my mother just called me. I know. That's not something you do. You don't just, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you come to me? And I said something I'd thought about for days. Because I needed you to not have the chance to explain it in a way that made me doubt what I saw. Silence. What you saw, she repeated. And then her voice shifted, softened, almost crumbled. It wasn't what it looked like. You don't understand the context. Claire. And here my voice did something it hadn't done in 11 days, something I couldn't entirely control. It broke, just slightly, just once, at the edge of her name. He told you he still loves you. And you said you didn't know what you felt. That was 10 days ago. And you came to bed that night and held my hand. Nothing. You posted reels about the wedding. You came to dinner with me at the place I proposed. You let her alter your dress 3 times. And the whole time, you were carrying that. The sound on the other end of the phone was something I can still hear if I'm quiet enough. Not crying exactly. Something underneath crying. A sound like a person trying to find a story that works and discovering there isn't one. I'm not coming to the venue, I said. Tom is going to make some calls. Anyone who's already in town will handle it. I'm sorry for the chaos. I'm not sorry for the post. I heard her breathe. I didn't choose him, she said finally. And I said, that's the thing, Claire. You didn't choose me either. Not completely. Not the way someone who's about to get married is supposed to choose. I hung up. Tom was at my door 40 minutes later with coffee that was actually hot, 2 breakfast sandwiches, and his face arranged in the specific expression of someone who is furious on your behalf and also trying very hard to be calm for you. He didn't say I told you so, because he hadn't told me so. He hadn't known any more than I had. He just sat across from me at that kitchen table and said, okay, what do you need? What I needed, practically speaking, was to make sure no one showed up to the venue tomorrow morning and waited in confusion. Tom took that on. He spent the next 3 hours making phone calls, sending a group message to everyone who needed to know, coordinating with the venue manager, a remarkably composed woman named Sandra, who told us she'd handled worse and set a cancellation process in motion with quiet efficiency. My mother arrived around noon. She didn't say anything when she walked in, just put her arms around me and stood there for a while, and I held on harder than I meant to. Claire's mother came 20 minutes later. That was something I hadn't anticipated. Her sitting at my kitchen table, across from my mother, both of them women who had met 4 times and were now united by a particular kind of grief that doesn't have a clean name. She looked older than she had at the rehearsal dinner, like the morning had taken something from her she wasn't going to get back right away. She looked at me and said, I want you to know that whatever she was thinking, whatever she was feeling, what she did to you was not right. And I'm ashamed of it. I told her she didn't need to be ashamed. It wasn't her fault. She said, maybe not, but I raised her, so I get to feel it anyway. I respected that enormously. Here's what I learned in the days that followed, pieced together from conversations with Rachel, from a long and incredibly difficult call with Claire herself about a week later, and from a few things I'd filed away over 4 years without fully examining. Owen and Claire had not actually ended cleanly. I had been told, and had believed, that it was mutual, amicable, the kind of uncoupling that 2 mature people manage when they grow in different directions. What it actually was, apparently, was Claire ending it because she felt like she'd stopped growing inside the relationship, and Owen spending the next 2 years never fully accepting that. He had reached out once before, about 8 months into Claire and my relationship. She had not told me. She had handled it on her own, shut it down, blocked him, moved on, and I think she genuinely believed at the time that was the right call. That managing it quietly protected us without costing anything. What it actually did was establish a precedent. A pattern of managing Owen privately, without me, as if he were a problem she was authorized to solve alone because she'd been the one to create him. When his engagement fell through, he reached out again. And this time, something in her faltered. She told me, on that call a week after everything collapsed, that she hadn't been planning to act on anything. That it wasn't an emotional affair in the full sense. No meetings, no explicit declarations from her side, nothing physical. Just conversations. Just the particular comfort of someone from your past showing up when you're about to cross a threshold that suddenly feels enormous, and feeling yourself soften toward them in ways you don't fully examine. I know that doesn't make it better, she said. No, I agreed. It doesn't. Do you think you could have? No, I said. I didn't even need to hear the rest. Not after 11 days of looking at your face. Not after the restaurant. Not after watching you post about being the luckiest woman alive. She went quiet. The issue isn't Owen, I said. The issue is that when you felt uncertain about us, about the wedding, about whatever, you didn't come to me. You went somewhere else. And you let me keep building toward a day I thought we both fully wanted. That's what I couldn't recover from. Not Owen. Not the messages. The choice she made, every single morning for 11 days, to let me stay in the dark. I've thought a lot about the post since then. About whether it was the right move, whether it was too public, whether I should have just confronted her privately and let the fallout be contained. Here's where I land on it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't fully know. Part of me thinks no, that I should have sat across from her at that kitchen table and said I read that message. I need you to explain it, and I need you to do it now. That there was a version of this where we had that conversation at 6 a.m. instead of at 6 a.m. I posted screenshots, and that it would have been more private, more dignified, more fair to her. But there's another part of me that knows what I actually feared. I feared her explanation. I feared the particular skill Qley had for making complicated things sound simple, for contextualizing things in ways that made you feel like you'd misunderstood when really you'd understood perfectly. I had watched her do it with smaller things over 4 years. I knew, in my bones, that if I gave her the chance to shape the narrative before I had the full picture, I might have walked into that venue the next morning and gotten married, and then spent years living in the aftermath of a decision made before I had all the information. The post was clumsy. It was loud. It caused pain for people who didn't deserve to be caught in it. Her sister, her mom, her bridesmaids who had done nothing wrong. I know that. I own it. But it was also the only move I could think of that removed the option of private revision. Here is the thing about laying something down that you've been carrying for a long time. It doesn't feel like relief right away. It feels like absence. Like reaching for something and finding your hand passes through air. Some mornings I'd wake up in the weeks after and feel genuinely fine, better than fine, clear in a way that almost surprised me. Other mornings I'd be making coffee and something completely unrelated would surface. The way she laughed at something stupid on TV, or the particular way she said my name when she was trying to get my attention from across a room. And it would just sit there for a minute, heavy and real, before I found my footing again. That's grief. Not the dramatic kind. The small, daily kind that lives in objects and habits and muscle memory. I don't regret the post. Not anymore, not most days. What I regret is only this, that she didn't trust me with her uncertainty. That she couldn't come to me and say I'm scared, or I'm confused, or someone from before reached out, and it's made me feel something I don't understand yet. I think I would have heard that. I think we could have sat with it together. I think the version of this story where she told me, really told me, might have ended differently. But she didn't. And so here we are. 140 people rearranged their lives. A barn sat empty on a Saturday afternoon in the kind of light that makes everything look romantic whether it is or not. Her dress is still in her closet, I assume. My suit is in mine. And I'm sitting here, writing this out for strangers on the internet at a strange hour, because there's something clarifying about saying a thing plainly, without softening it, to people who have no stake in it. She posted wedding photos while talking to someone she once loved about feelings she hadn't told me she was having. I waited. Then I let everyone see what I saw. And the first person who called wasn't her. The last person who apologized was. Some things don't end with an answer. They just end.